Welcome to part 1 on our presentation, Keeping Pests Out of the Garden, Insect and Disease Management, a part of our Rutgers Community Gardening series. Hello, my name is Madeline Flyhive DiNardo, and I am the County Agricultural Agent with Rutgers Cooperative Extension in Union County. This presentation was developed by a team of Rutgers faculty and Master Gardener coordinators. The lead author of this presentation is Peter Nietzsche, the County Agricultural Agent with Rutgers Cooperative Extension in Morris County. Keeping pests out of the garden. Our goal for this session is to help you recognize common vegetable insect pests and diseases and take actions to prevent damage to your vegetables. We'll talk about tasks you can do in the garden to prevent or manage problems by using what's known as cultural methods of control. Cultural means of control are mechanical methods gardeners can use to deter pests and diseases alike, such as using raised beds, staking and trellising plants, and weed control to prevent the harboring of insect and disease organisms. We'll learn the role of beneficial insects in the garden and how to recognize these valuable partners in protecting your harvest yields. The photo shown here is a hungry ladybug larva taking care of some spider mites. We will identify common insects in their various stages of their life cycle and learn which vegetables they tend to prefer. We will also look into some common diseases and discuss ways to manage them or prevent future problems. How many of you have heard of the term IPM? Integrated Pest Management is a way of managing pests and diseases using a variety of techniques. The first management strategies are cultural, such as planting resistant varieties and proper watering techniques. A physical control could be using a floating row cover. We will see pictures of floating row covers later in this presentation. Pesticides, chemical controls, are a part of an IPM program, but they are the last resort and the least toxic materials are preferred. We will talk in more detail about these methods. In farming, we talk about keeping pests below economic damage levels, where damage to the crop would be more costly than the control. In a garden, we will talk about acceptable levels. But what is acceptable to one gardener might not be acceptable to another. For example, if you only have one tomato plant, you might not be able to accept as much damage as your neighbor who has a dozen tomato plants. If you follow these guidelines when planning, planting, and maintaining your garden, you are most likely to have very few insect or disease problems to worry about. Plants that are bred to be resistant to certain diseases may still get the problem, but the plant is more likely to recover from the injury. Heirloom plants are usually not resistant to many disease problems. Information about resistance can be found in Cooperative Extension publications, on seed packages, in catalogs, or even on the plant label. Keeping the garden weed-free and removing dead or dying plant parts gives insects and disease pathogens less opportunity to spread. Plants that have received proper care, such as watering, can withstand an insect or disease problem better than a stress plant, one which may not have been properly watered or has been damaged. Crop rotation, moving types of vegetable in your garden to different locations in the garden annually, will be discussed on the next slide. Moving a specific crop or vegetable in the same plant family to a different part of the community garden each growing season can help reduce the chance of soil-borne disease or insect populations building up over time. Many soil-borne diseases require at least a 3-year rotation to reduce pathogen populations before planting back the susceptible crop. Here are some examples of plant families. Tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants are in the Solanaceae family. Squashes and cucumbers are in the Cucurbitaceae family. And the Brassicaceae family includes cabbages, broccoli, kale, and Brussels sprouts. Beneficial insects are insects that eat insects that will cause damage in gardens. The lady beetle, also known as the ladybug, is an excellent predator against aphids. Not all predators are necessarily the best control, such as the praying mantis. It will eat bad and good insects, and even each other. There are many beneficial insects that live in a garden. Some occur naturally, others you may need to purchase and import into the garden. Here we are classifying them by what they do to other insects. Some are predators, meaning they prey on other insects, keeping the insect population causing damage to your garden down. The lady beetle and praying mantis we just looked at are examples of predators. In these photos, we see a braconid wasp in action. These wasps are extremely small. They lay their eggs on an unsuspecting tomato hornworm, who is a voracious feeder of tomatoes. The eggs hatch, and the larvae, pictured below, eat or parasitize the tomato hornworm. There would be no reason to use a pesticide on this tomato hornworm. Nature has taken care of the problem. Pollinators, such as honey and native bees, ensure that flowers are pollinated so they can set fruit. Entomopathogenic nematodes are microscopic organisms that attack specific larval stages of insects. They are not insects. Since they are living organisms, they need to be properly stored and have an expiration date. They are usually applied with water, and the product label will recommend the time of day to apply them. There are only a few nematodes that are used as biological controls. In nature, many species are responsible for spreading plant viruses and disease. You can purchase beneficial insects at garden centers or through online vendors. Learn about the appropriate time of year and time of day to release the specific beneficial insects. For example, lady beetles prefer to be released very early in the morning, just before sunrise. For most beneficial insects, avoid releasing them during the midday heat. Typically, you will also need the pest insect present so the beneficial insect has something to eat, or they will just fly to another garden. Know what your insect looks like in all stages of development. Here we see the lace wing in its egg stage, the scary looking larva stage, which actually does most of the work, and the attractive winged adult lacewing. Ornamental plants, such as a few perennial flowers or ornamental grasses, can provide an overwintering place for beneficial insects. Vegetation left for overwintering beneficial insects should be nearby the outside perimeter of the garden, because we don't want to provide cover in the garden for insect pests. Any leftover vegetable garden debris should be composted or tilled into the soil to rot away. Avoid leaving plant material that could harbor any of the past season's pests or diseases. Just because you purchase the beneficials, there's no guarantee they will stay in your community garden. There are a few things you can do to make your garden more enticing to stay. Providing winter cover outside the garden and season-long blooms of flowers in the garden during the growing season makes a good habitat for beneficial insects. The picture on the left is research conducted by Dr. George Hamilton of Rutgers University. The research is on using flowers to attract beneficial insects to control caterpillar pests on peppers. Dr. George Hamilton and his students planted plots with and without flowers on opposite sides of a research farm, and saw a significant reduction in pest damage in the plots with flowers planted next to the plot. Select plants that are early spring, early summer, mid, late June through July, and late blooming flowers, August through September to frost. So there's always nectar available for the beneficial insects. Certain types of flowers are more attractive to beneficial insects than others. Floating row covers are placed over vegetable plants that are susceptible to damage from flying insects such as moths and flies that lay their eggs on the plants. We mentioned them in the beginning of this lecture as an example of a physical control used in an IPM program. Floating row covers are made of a lightweight woven fabric that allows water and sunlight through. Reme is a brand name of one such product. The material is typically lightweight woven or sun-bonded polyester or polypropylene. The row cover is draped over hoops, which can be made out of wire. The row covers can sometimes be removed once the egg-laying stage of the insect pest has passed. There are specific examples later in this presentation. Be sure to remove row covers for plants that need to be pollinated when they start to flower. Some community gardens may have regulations about pesticide use, such as types of products, timing of applications, and notifying other gardeners about treated areas. Check with your community garden organization. Pesticides are the last action in an IPM program when all attempts at cultural control fail. Be sure to properly identify the pest or disease before selecting a control measure. Choose a product with the least toxicity and also for the correct situation. The signal word on the label will give you an idea of the toxicity of the product. General use pesticides can be purchased at garden centers and other retail stores and do not require a New Jersey pesticide applicator license. However, if you are hiring someone to apply any pesticide for you, the applicator must be licensed with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Pesticide Control Program. Spot treating means only applying pesticide where insects are present and perhaps leaving some plants in the area untreated so that a few beneficial insects survive a pesticide treatment and they may take care of the remaining insect pests. Every pesticide product has a, quote, single word on the label based on the toxicity of the pesticide. The words, in order of least toxic to most toxic, are caution, warning, danger, or danger poison. Keep in mind that all pesticide products are toxic and should be handled responsibly. Be sure to wear protective equipment mentioned on the label, such as goggles, boots, and chemical-resistant gloves when applying pesticides. Organic pesticides tend to break down quickly in the environment. The products mentioned here have caution signal words, but keep in mind that some organic products are more toxic and have a danger signal word. Organic products tend to break down quickly in the environment and usually work on contact with the insect. Remember, all pesticide products are required by the Environmental Protection Agency to have the signal word, which describes the toxicity level of the product. On this chart, the organic pesticides listed have been assigned caution labels, but be aware that there are organic products that have danger signal words. The mode of action is the way the pesticide affects the target pest. Some pesticides kill the pest quickly, while others may take a few days to work. Synthetic pesticides are man-made in a lab but may be derived from natural plant and insect chemistries. Those found in nature and if synthesized from organic natural sources are sometimes approved as organic by the Organic Materials Research Institute, OMRI, the U.S. Organic Standards approving body. Insects come in direct contact with the product, contact insecticide, and other products are absorbed by the plant and then eaten by the insect. This is called systemic action. Major offenders. There are some insects and diseases that are common to many vegetable plants. Let's take a look at these pests and IPM methods of control. Later, we will get into some specific plant hosts of certain insects and diseases in part 2 of this presentation. This insect is usually found on the undersides of leaves and/or on the new growth. They suck on the plant and secrete a sticky substance called honeydew. Sometimes ants are attracted to the honeydew. Therefore, if you see ants on your plants, check for signs of aphids. Aphids can also spread virus diseases. There are hundreds of species of aphids that come in many colors. Often their population increases so rapidly that beneficial insects can't keep up with them. Sometimes a forceful spray of water from a garden hose can knock aphids off a plant, but be sure to aim on the underside of the leaves where the aphids are feeding. The light reflecting off the shiny side of aluminum foil helps repel aphids. Some gardeners are very disappointed when they go out to the garden one morning to find that all their plants have been cut off at ground level. Digging around the soil surface, you find this culprit. The dreaded cutworm. As a moth, it lays eggs on low-growing plants, such as weeds, and that's why garden sanitation is so important in the IPM practice. The larvae are what cut the plant stem at soil level. Turning the soil before planting exposes the larvae to the elements and makes a good meal for birds. Making a slit in a cardboard tube, such as a paper towel or toilet paper roll, cut into 2 to 3 inch sections and place them around a new transplant to protect them from the cutworm larva. This creates what's called a physical barrier. Beneficial nematodes attack larvae in the soil. They are microscopic worms. As living creatures, they are also perishable. Purchased from a reputable dealer. They usually need to be stored in a cool but not freezing location and have an expiration date. Ideally, they should be applied the day of purchase in the early evening and watered into the soil. Be aware that there are specific species of nematodes that feed on very specific pests. The nematodes that are used to manage turf grubs may not work on cutworms in the vegetable garden. Here's an interesting problem on many leafy vegetables, such as spinach, beets, and chard. You will see squiggly lines on the leaves. Here's what causes those lines. It's the adult leaf miner laying its eggs on the leaf. When the eggs hatch, the maggots feed between the leaf surfaces, creating mines. Thus the name of this pest, the leaf miner. Placing row covers over leafy crops creates a physical barrier that can help protect the leaves from flies laying their eggs. Slugs and snails like to live in organic manner in the garden. They shred the leaves of plants. They are a common pest of ornamental plants, especially hostas. Slugs can be difficult to control. They are active at night, so sometimes it's difficult to catch them in the act. Sometimes you will only see their slime trail and know that they are the culprit. Their slimy covering resists many chemical products. Pour beer, the inexpensive kinds are fine, in a shallow pan or pie tin and place it where you see slug activity. Slugs are attracted to the yeast in the beer, and they fall into the shallow pan of beer and drown. A band of copper around individual plants can protect them from slugs and snails, since they don't like to crawl across it. The issue with copper collars is that they are expensive, since copper is very valuable right now. Since they prefer to hide in organic manner during the day, they may rest under a piece of wood or in a hollowed out grapefruit peel. Once you find them under the trap, simply crush them by stepping on the trap or just remove them from the garden. Diatomaceous earth works by cutting through the slimy surface. Wear eye protection, gloves, and a dust mask when applying diatomaceous earth. Note the other pesticide products mentioned are all baits. They must be ingested by the slug or snail to work. These tiny mites suck juice from plants. When populations are high, we will see the obvious webbing on the plants. Spider mites thrive in hot, dry conditions, and populations can build up quickly. Notice the word arachnicides for the pesticide products. Spider mites are actually members of the arachnid spider family. They have 8 legs instead of 6, like insects. A force of water knocks them off the plant, and they cannot fly back onto the plant since they are wingless. There are at least 10 species of stink bugs and plant bugs found in New Jersey. They overwinter as adults in protected areas, become active in the early spring, and feed on many plants. Females can deposit several hundred clusters of 30 eggs. The eggs hatch in 5 to 7 days, and the nymphs feed for 4 to 6 weeks. There can be 1 or 2 generations a year. Their needle-like mouthpiece sucks sap out of buds, blossoms, stems, fruits, and even seeds. Here we see stink bug damage on a pepper. Attacked fruits, vegetables are deformed and may drop off. Seeds shrivel and turn brown. The brown marmorated stink bug is a fairly recent invasive pest from Asia. Most of the damage is occurring on peppers, tomatoes, apples, and peaches. The discoloration on the fruit is from an enzyme secreted by the stink bug when it pierces the fruit. When the weather cools down in the fall, many adults may congregate on the side of homes and enter to overwinter. You may see them out and about, in or outside your home, on a warm winter day. This pest is of concern to commercial growers, and research is being done at several universities to combat the brown marmorated stink bug. Row covers protect plants from stink bugs by creating a physical barrier between the plant and the plant bugs. If only a few are present, hand-picking or removing egg masses will help keep the population down. If you opt to use an oil product, be sure to check the label for use on vegetables and watch the weather conditions, especially heat. Cool, dry days are ideal conditions for these applications. When you brush up against your plants in the garden, you may notice a flurry of these insects temporarily racing off the plant. The egg stage of the whitefly looks like a yellow-green flat disc on the underside of the leaves. They can be difficult to control because they are fast flyers. Direct pesticide sprays to the undersides of the leaves are often used to control whitefly. Plant diseases. Vegetables can be susceptible to many types of diseases, but fortunately, many can be prevented with good cultural care. Later in the talk, in part 2, we'll look at some in greater detail. Powdery mildew is found on the upper surface of the leaf, but it will also spread to other plant parts, underneath the leaves and on the stem. Downy mildew is generally found on the lower downside of the leaf, with symptoms later seen by discoloration at the top of the leaf. Most leaf spots are fungal diseases. Pictured on the slide is a fungal leaf spot. Many leaf spots appear as tan spots with a yellow or purple halo around the spot. If you look closely with a hand lens, you may see a ring of tiny black spores. Yellow halos usually come with bacterial spots. The yellowing perimeter is where the bacteria are spreading out into healthy tissue and expanding the infection. With bacterial diseases, the plants usually turn black and then later slimy. Plants with bacterial diseases should be removed, roots and all, as soon as possible to prevent the spread to healthy plants. Do not add diseased plants to compost pile. Rather, remove them far away from the garden. With wilt diseases, the leaves may roll and the entire plant wilts. They do not recover after a good watering. Some wilt diseases are transmitted by insects. Some wilts are caused by bacterial diseases that were transmitted by insects moving from plant to plant. Sometimes wilt will be caused by chewing insects that damage the stems or roots. Inspect the plants to find out the cause. Rusts literally look like rust pustules on the leaves and usually occur when there is high moisture or high humidity. Anthracnose is a fungal disease that appears as lesions on the leaves and can be carried over season to season by infected plant material being left over in the soil. Viruses usually show unusual patterns in the leaves and the fruit. Viruses are actually transmitted by insects. The leaves can be distorted, mottled, and curved if infected by viruses. Disease spores often overwinter in the soil, so we want to avoid areas with lots of spores from diseased plants that are growing in the area of the garden the previous year. It's recommended to use a soaker hose or hand water at the base of the plant to keep the leaf surfaces as dry as possible. Fungus and bacteria need wet surfaces to spread. If you need to use a sprinkler, water in the early morning or very early afternoon so that the leaves are dry by nightfall. Established plants only need about 1 inch of water a week. It is best to water for a long period of time, once or twice a week if there is no rainfall, instead of watering shallowly each day. Roots will grow deeper in the soil, creating better anchored plants, and the roots remain cooler with deeper, less frequent waterings. Additionally, the roots can reach fertilizers that may be deeper in the soil profile for more efficient nutrient uptake. Proper spacing also helps the leaf surface dry faster by providing good air circulation. Another benefit of proper spacing is that there is less competition between the plants for water and nutrients. Good weed control also helps improve air circulation. Weeds can harbor insect and diseases and rob plants of water and nutrients, so it is best to remove them from your garden. In summary, integrated pest management techniques employ cultural methods of control, such as crop rotation or using floating row covers to protect the crops. Beneficial insects and other biological controls can be used to manage insect pest populations. Being able to recognize common insects and diseases of vegetables gives you a head start on prevention and management of problems. If you have any questions, we have resource materials available for you on this website. Here's to a pest-free garden. This presentation was developed by a team of Rutgers Cooperative Extension faculty and staff. Thank you for attending this Rutgers Cooperative Extension program. Here is a list of other Rutgers Cooperative Extension Gardening Series talks that are available. Need more information? Rutgers Master Gardeners are trained volunteers who provide research-based information from Rutgers Cooperative Extension, the New Jersey Agricultural Experiment Station. Rutgers Master Gardeners operate garden helplines at their local county Rutgers Cooperative Extension office that you can call, email, or visit. You are welcome to bring samples of vegetable plant problems and insects to the office for identification and management advice. Rutgers Master Gardeners are a great educational resource for your community garden. We wish you the best harvests in your community garden.